In this video, I'm going to be going over how to very quickly get set up with NextJS and Supabase so that you can build a full stack app using NextJS and React as your stack to build on, and Supabase as your authentication and database. Now, if you're not a technical person, then this is probably the video for you. I'm not a technical person, but I've been using GitHub Copilot to help me with building a lot of stuff recently, and stuff that, quite frankly, I found to be very empowering because I own it. It's all code that I can do whatever I want with. So without further ado, I'm going to show you kind of the foundation that I've been building a lot of things on and how to set it up for yourself, just following this pretty easy to follow tutorial. So on the left-hand side, I have Visual Studio Code or VS Code. And this is the software that we're going to be using to, number one, create our apps in, and number two, to interact with our AI assistant. Now, the AI assistant that I'm going to be using is GitHub Copilot. Now, there's plenty of other tools out there, but this one I've kind of liked just because of how well it's integrated. The other thing I like about it too is that it lets you switch between the ask and the agent mode. So ask being just kind of brainstorming, planning out, architecting out what it is you're trying to build. Agent is where this thing is going to go and it's going to build it. You are not cautious. Agent will build some stuff that you probably didn't expect it to, and sometimes kind of throw a whole project off the rails. The other thing I really like is that you can switch models. So if you are inclined towards, let's say, OpenAI models versus Anthropic, you can do that here. Probably the main areas we're going to be spending time in is going to be looking at our files and working with GitHub Copilot, and soon the actual code files will show up here. Eventually, I'll talk about how to use GitHub or Git. Now, the first thing I want to do is add a folder with test project 2, very innovatively named. Okay. At this point, what we have is a folder in which we're going to be putting all of our code. For now, we can leave that there. We're going to come over to the Supabase tutorial, and the next thing we need to do is actually create our tables. Now, they give you an example here of creating a table to store instruments. All I'm going to do is take this query, and what this is a SQL query that just says create a table that has instruments in it, and put these instruments in it. And I'm going to come over, I'm going to switch screens now, and I've already created a project that's called a test project. And this is the default dashboard, so there's nothing special, nothing's happened here yet. What we're going to do is come over to SQL Editor. This allows you to take that query, plop it in here, run it, and then it's going to create that table for me. So if I come over to Table Editor, I will now see that I have a table called Instruments, and there's the 3 instruments that we saw on the other page. Now, the next thing it's also going to have me do in this tutorial is to add RLS policies, and these stand for row level security, if I can remember correctly. But this essentially states, who can access what information on in this table. So a lot of times this is used, for example, like I only want authenticated users to access their instruments, for example. So only if you're signed in can you come in and see your violin, things like that. There's a lot of other use cases there, but just on a very central level. So let's go ahead and grab that. And again, we're just going to come back to SQL Editor. And if we were actually building out a real project, I would say we would want to talk more about what those RLS policies should be, because that can a lot of times come back and burn you later. All right, so we have now completed step 1 in this process. So we have our table ready and it's ready to be used. So the next thing we need to do is install NextJS with the Supabase integration already. And all I'm going to do is take this, copy it, and come back over to VS Code. Go to View, open Terminal. And you'll notice that I'm inside of my project right now. So what I want to do is move out one directory or move up one level. I'm going to do cd ... And so now I'm in my main folder where I have all of my projects. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when I run this, copy that again. So right now when I tell it to create this new project, it's going to ask me what the project name is. And if I'm inside of test project 2 already, it's going to create another folder in there, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm just going to type in test project 2. And because that folder already exists, it should go ahead and start downloading everything right in here. And there we are. So now I'm now getting my Next.js and React framework all set up. Okay, so that's all done. And continuing with the tutorial over here. So the next thing we need to do is set up our environment variables. And this really, all this means is just, we're going to say that this word equals this value. So in this case, we're saying that this phrase right here, which is next public Supabase URL, is going to equal to whatever our Supabase URL is. Same thing with this. And this is basically just our security keys to allow us to actually interface back and forth with our project. Now over here, I'm going to say it lets you pick your project, which is pretty cool. So if you've already created an account, you'll just be able to click that and copy that out. But all I'm going to do now is come over here. And what I need to do is create, actually it's telling me to rename. So you can come over here. Oh yeah, nice. So you can rename that. And instead of env.example, I'm going to say env.local. And what this does, because there's a lot of other things that you might end up using over time that are going to want to access this. So for example, if you want to integrate with something like an AI assistant or an LLM model, you might have to put API keys here or other tools, whatever it is. This file is going to be quite commonly used for using the tutorial. And the next thing it's saying is to create a page for us to show those instruments. Okay, so this is actually a great example as well to see we've put information in a table. So how are we actually going to use it now? So all we're going to do is copy it. So it's telling us to create a new file in the app directory under instruments under page tx. So what I'm going to do is come over here, come into app, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I can just click on this, call it instruments. I spelled it right, and then I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to call it page.tsx. I'm going to pop this in here. This is again what I copied from over here. And at this point, I should be good. I'm going to go npm run dev. It's essentially just going to be to run the development environment for you. So, so one thing we have to do before we can actually do anything is we have to install npm. Or not. What do we have to do? Well, I don't actually know what I have to do. So this is where we start using the assistant. So what I can do is come in here, and I'm going to go command all. I'm going to say, so inside of Copilot, you can use hashtags to use certain things or to get certain things. For example, in this one, I can say terminal selection. That's everything that I highlighted inside of the terminal. Here's all this matter. Make sure that I'm on ask. And because it's probably a very fundamental question, I'm just going to not waste my Claude 4 runs and see what it gives back. Yes. So part of the problem here, I'm in the wrong directory. So you notice right now I'm inside of the GitHub VS Code directory, which is where I store all of my files. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and go into, and hit CD, and I'm going to go to, what did I call this thing? This project. Okay, so now I'm inside of it. So now when I go npm run dev, there we go. So our server is now running. So now I can take this localhost 3000. I'm just going to hit command and click on it. And at this stage, we're done actually with the Supabase piece for what we're aiming for today, which is the ability to very quickly set up your database and access the information on it. But otherwise, I mean, there's definitely auth that needs to be set up. There's a lot of other ways that we could have interfaced with the data. There's functions we could be doing, but just to show you kind of the absolute baseline of what we just did. So what I want to do now is access this page that I made, instruments. And so what I'm going to do is go / instruments. And there it is. So this blob of JSON right here, or this array, I should say, of JSON objects, which is just a list of objects of that, is exactly what existed in our table. So if I come over here, I'm going to switch over, come back to our table, and there they are. Because we have this set up, we can start doing things like this, which is, let's see. I mean, normally you'd want to actually plan this out correctly, but just to show you how quickly now, assuming you've gotten this far and you have this page set up. So not the best of prompts, but at minimum, what I've just done is given the AI assistant the ability to, one, view the page that we're looking at right here. So it's viewed this code. And two, it has the context of knowing what it is I'm talking about. And then lastly, now because it knows what I'm doing, what is it doing now? So you'll notice that because I gave it really, I would say a very poor prompt, this is an example of it going off the rails and doing something that I didn't really ask it to. It could have done this in a variety of ways. So it could have just put inline styles and tried to create a component. But now what it's doing is trying to think in the proper manner, if you want to say. And so it's creating the components for me to actually then display the information here properly, which is the right way you're supposed to do it. But for the sake of example, it's going to take a little bit longer than what I'd hoped. But this will still show you how quickly we just went from, okay, I have information sitting here in a table. Again, you can imagine that as a Google Sheet. I need to be able to now use that information on a website or in a web app somehow. We got that up and running in less than 10 minutes if I hadn't kept talking so much. That's pretty cool. So you can see, I mean, it obviously still needs a lot of work, but you can see very quickly we were able to create the foundation that we're going to be able to use to build out pretty much every other app that we want to build at this point, connect it to a database and actually access the information, and then have the assistant build out what I would argue is a pretty, it's not amazing, but it's a pretty decent interface very quickly. And from here, I could probably tell it, and I'll just let it do its thing. Now, this is definitely not good practice, by the way, because what it might end up doing is creating more components. It might end up creating random styles that I didn't really care for. And then all of a sudden, things just become a mess. But this is just to show how quickly you can get up and running. So for now, this is kind of where I'm going to stop because this thing's probably going to do something kind of crazy and throw a bunch of errors on the screen. But I just wanted to be able to show how quickly and how easily, I didn't touch a single line of code. Again, I'm not a technical person, but we're able to get up and running very quickly, something that we can now start building on top of and get moving with. So hopefully that was helpful. If there's any questions, anything I can answer, if anyone needs any help with it, I'm happy to do so. But always reach out with any questions, concerns, and good jokes.
We don't need big tech, don't need